The Neo Vista 1 had a lot of promise last year. It was just so different from what Mizuno had ever made in the past. But there were a couple of things that made it a bit of a mismatch for me. This year, the midsole has perked up a bit and the plate is less obtrusive. So did Mizuno make the cushion long run shoe that I've been hoping for? It's time to lace up the Neo Vista 2 and take it for a ride. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi and I'm an elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys all about the Mizuno Neo Vista 2. But before I give you my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that Mizuno sent to me for the purpose of review, so I did not have to pay for these shoes. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to include their brand in this video, and no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Neo Vista 2, and let's start with the specs. This is a 44.5mm stack height shoe in the heel with an 8mm drop, giving us 36.5mm of stack height in the forefoot. And in this shoe, we've got a dual foam system and a plate. Let's break that down. The top layer is Mizuno NXT foam. The bottom layer is also called Mizuno NXT foam, if I'm not mistaken, but it's a different kind of foam. And then there is a plate sandwich in between that top and bottom layer. The top layer is Mizuno NXT, made out of a nitrogen infused TPU. So it's a supercritical foam. And that's the top layer. That's this white foam and including this bubble that goes on the top. The bottom layer is, I think they're still calling it Mizuno NXT foam, but it is an EVA layer. It's going to be a little bit more resistant to compression, and it's going to stiffen up the shoe just a little bit. And to further stabilize and stiffen up the shoe, there is a wave plate. Now this is a glass fiber reinforced nylon plate, so it's made out of hard plastic. The way that Mizuno tends to describe and has historically described the way that their wave plates work is that they distribute impact forces. And so I think ultimately what they're doing with it is they're just trying to stabilize the squishiness of the foam and keep it from tipping too far one side or the other when your foot hits the ground. One of the other things that they've done that makes it a little bit different from last year is that they've added a little kind of cross member underneath the bottom of the shoe. And so in version 1, we had just this one giant channel or open space underneath the wave plate that you could see. And now that they've put this kind of cross member through the middle, so you kind of have two smaller areas. And I think that mainly this is going to be to prevent rocks from getting stuck in there. And protecting all this foam that's on the bottom here is Mizuno's rubber. We pretty much have full rubber coverage on this outsole, and this outsole is relatively thick, so you're going to get a lot of grippy miles out of the shoe. Moving to the upper, we have, I think, almost the identical upper as what we saw last year. The lacing system looks almost identical. The little plastic or rubber piece that's on the top front of the tongue that prevents any pressure from the lacing is also pretty much the same, as well as the pull tab. Now they have made some changes in terms of the way that it's constructed. While it's still knit, it looks like there's more like larger holes along the lateral side of the shoe, and they've switched the side that the logo is on from the outside to the inside, but pretty much you've got the same shoe, very comfortable, stretchy knit material, very easy to get into, very comfortable to wear, and there's not too much structure back here. It's a relatively floppy ankle. Altogether, this shoe comes in at a pretty respectable weight for a shoe of this size and height, a stated weight of 9.2 ounces or 260 grams. Now that we talked about what this shoe is like on paper, let's talk about what it's like on the road. The Mizuno Neo Vista 2 is so enjoyably squishy. I'm having such a good time running in it. It's so very comfortable, but at the same time, it's got a little bit of responsiveness to the foam that keeps it from getting too mushy and feeling like you're trying to run in a pair of OOFOS. And I think that comes down to the way that they've tweaked the foams this year. Switching to an EVA bottom layer on this shoe keeps it from being too mushy. It gives it a little bit of kind of stability and also pushback when everything starts to get compressed. And so it feels just a little bit more responsive. It doesn't feel like I'm sinking into the shoe quite as long. Now, I enjoy sinking into shoes. I like it when shoes are dynamic, but I also like to get pulled out of that squish in a quick way. I want it to be very quick in a racing shoe, and I want it to be reasonably quick in a shoe that's going to be either meant for max cushion use or as a long run shoe. And I think they've done a really good job at making it reasonably responsive for a shoe of this type. And I think another thing that helps me in this year is that the plate seems to be different. Now, I don't know if they've actually changed the plate at all. I'm guessing that it's probably the same plate. But again, with the change in the foams that they've used this year, I'm feeling the plate a little bit less. It doesn't feel like the plate is so assertive. It doesn't feel like the plate is trying to kind of push my foot to step and land in a certain kind of way. So I feel like the shoe is getting along with me better and letting me run in the way that I want to run. And it's a comfortable experience. Last year, I felt like the plate really wanted me to be a heel striker. And if I wasn't, it felt like the plate was kind of shoving foam up into my arch in an uncomfortable way. So that way it was a little bit too mushy for a very long run, and also kind of uncomfortable unless I was running in a very specific way. So I generally found myself using the Neo Vista 1 as a shoe that I would use for some recovery runs, but not for very long runs. In contrast, I feel like the updates to the Neo Vista 2 make it so that I can do long, slow distance runs with a great amount of comfort, and I can reach for it for recovery runs or just kind of like a longer than average easy run kind of day. Any day where I'm going to be either on feet for a long time or I want to be extra comfortable, the Neo Vista 2 has been really enjoyable to put on. Plus, I love the fit of the knit. They didn't really change much from last year to this year, and so if you have familiarity with the sizing there, I would say go with the same sizing this year. I went with my regular running shoe size and it was really comfortable for me. It's just a pleasure to have on foot. Now, I did get this shoe very wet, either with a lot of sweat on a very hot long run or on a rainy day where I was just getting soaked and stomping through a lot of puddles. And in each of those situations, the knit material does what knit material does, and it did get a little bit heavy. It holds on to that moisture for longer than some other synthetic materials might. But in the overall scheme of things, since I'm not using this shoe for racing, I do really like having the knit material here, as it makes for a very comfortable option. And the tread on the bottom was fine. I had no problems with slip or traction when it came to the outsole of the shoe. Now, the one critique that I think I have for this shoe is that Mizuno is trying to position it really as kind of a long run shoe, a shoe that you could be in for a long period of time and that you could pick up the pace in if you wanted to on that long run. And I don't think they're quite there yet with the Neo Vista 2. I think it needs to be just a little bit snappier and perhaps a little bit lighter to help make it more palatable for something where it's going to be a long run with a bunch of marathon effort miles or any sort of other up tempo or progression run, because of the fact that it is still a little bit on the squishy side and because it is a touch on the heavy side, at least when I actually weighed mine on the scale, which came in a little bit heavier than what the stated weight was. But otherwise, I think if you're looking for that max cushion shoe, something where you could put in a higher volume of work for your next marathon training block, or you're just looking for a really comfortable recovery run kind of shoe, I feel like the Neo Vista 2 really hits the spot. Before we wrap up this video, let's take a moment to zoom out and see where the Neo Vista 2 sits within the broader Mizuno lineup. Now, this breakdown is going to be a little bit harder for me to do because I just haven't been reviewing quite as many Mizuno shoes over the years. And I think that's because for me as a brand, I feel like Mizuno has been making a lot of heel striker shoes. I'm a midfoot, forefoot striker, and a lot of times heel striker shoes feel very uncomfortable and very firm to me. And so I've kind of been gravitating, or what's the opposite of gravitating? It's been a while since I've reviewed the Wave Rider, but that is their daily trainer. And they also have a bunch of stability shoes, which for me, a lot of heel striker shoes tend to feel like stability shoes as well. So that may be why I kind of don't review so many of those because I don't review stability shoes, because those tend to, over time, start to really bother my ankles and my knees. And so in the stability category, they've got like the Wave Inspire and the Wave Horizon. And those shoes, I think, all have very loyal followings, but they're just not shoes that I look at, so I can't really tell you too much about them, but that's what those shoes are. But what I can tell you about is that Mizuno has kind of started making two like capsule collection. So remember when Saucony started making this Endorphin series of shoes, and it wasn't just like a super shoe, it was the Endorphin series. So there was the Endorphin Shift, which was kind of like the daily trainer, although it was more of a stability shoe. Then they had the Endorphin Speed and the Endorphin Pro. And now there's an Endorphin Trainer, and there's also an Endorphin Elite. So there was kind of like a capsule that did expand, and some shoes kind of got dropped, but it did grow, but that was within and separate from kind of everything else that was going on at Saucony. And I think Mizuno is kind of doing a similar thing over here. And one of the ways they're doing that is with their kind of race or speed product. And we've got two shoes here. This one is the Wave Rebellion Flash 2. This is more of that kind of like, can be a daily trainer, but little bit more of an up-tempo or a workout shoe. And then we have the Wave Rebellion Pro. This is the Wave Rebellion Pro version 2. They're on version 3 now. They never sent me version 3 to review, so I have version 2 in front of me right here. But these are two shoes that share a lot of kind of design philosophy and also speed philosophy as well. They both have these very aggressive heel bevels. They have plates, not carbon plates, but very stiff plates. And they are designed very much for midfoot strikers, and if not a little bit more for heel strikers, I think, in the Wave Rebellion Flash version 2. But these are kind of their speed and a race category of offerings. And then separate from that, that is where the Neo shoes come in. And the Neo shoes offer a very different experience, and in my mind, a very refreshing experience. Now we have the Neo Zen. This is version 1 of the Neo Zen, and it actually doesn't have a wave plate in it at all, which makes it a pretty rare bird over at Mizuno. It does have a very comfortable knit that isn't exactly the same as the knit that's on the Neo Vista 2, but it's very similar, and it has a very similar kind of feel and spirit to the entire shoe, but it's in more of a daily trainer type package. I still feel like this kind of runs like a max cushion shoe, but it also still is kind of like a daily trainer as well. And so if you're wanting a very cushioned, almost what I would consider like a very modern type of running experience, I'd say the Neo Vista is going to be for you. It's still going to be a little bit on the mushy side, in my opinion, as far as the foam that they're using in here goes, but it's a very comfortable, cushioned, dynamic daily trainer that you can use. And then the Neo Vista 2 fits in as a max cushion kind of sibling to that shoe that you would use for that recovery day or for that long, slow distance kind of day. Again, giving you a very cushioned, a very different kind of experience from Mizuno, using some very different foams and design language. And so it's intended, I think, to appeal to a different set of runners. And so these two shoes could pair well with the Wave Rebellion series of shoes if you wanted to use it for speed. So let's kind of like rearrange these in the way that I would normally arrange them. So you'd have the daily trainer in the middle, you'd have the max cushion shoe over on the end, and then you'd have the Wave Rebellion Flash as that workout shoe, and then the Wave Rebellion Pro as your racing shoe. And so for me, as someone that didn't really get along with the Wave Rider or the Wave Inspire, which is a stability shoe, this is a 4-shoe rotation that I would reach for from Mizuno. But realistically, because I am a midfoot, forefoot striker, this Wave Rebellion Flash 2 just, I didn't get along with the shoe very much. So I would probably even then pare it down to 3 shoes. And this is the lineup that I would be looking for if I were setting it up with all Mizuno shoes. Now let's wrap up this video by going over the buy guide, and we'll also discuss some of the alternatives. The Mizuno Neo Vista 2 is a cushioned and comfy max cushion shoe that's great for tired legs or long, slow distance. I still don't think it's quite as peppy, at least not for me, as Mizuno hopes that this shoe would be. But the changes to version 2 make this shoe a max cushion option that I can recommend to a wide range of runners. This shoe currently retails for $200, and I think that's a bit on the high side for what you're getting from this shoe. Last year's Neo Vista version 1 retailed for $20 cheaper, so I'm hoping that $20 price is really just a tariff price. But if you are looking to save money on either of these two shoes, know that the Neo Vista one is a very comfy cushion option that I would use very similarly as a max cushion shoe, as a long, slow distance kind of shoe. But because of the way that the plate and foams interact on that one, I really would only recommend that shoe if you are a solid midfoot or heel striker. So there's a little bit of a caveat there. But if that describes your running style, you're in luck because the Neo Vista 1 is available now for $125 at a discount. So that would be the one that I would recommend if you are the type of runner that can run in that shoe. But let's also take a look at some of the alternatives that are out there to see what the competition has to offer. Now, the first shoe that I thought of when running in the Neo Vista 2 was from Skechers Running, and this is the Aeroburst. This is a shoe that I recently reviewed that I was pleasantly surprised with how nice and compressive the foam was here in this Hyperburst Ice. Both of these shoes are using two different densities of foam to control the compression and decompression of the experience when running in these shoes. I also feel like the Aeroburst is a really good, solid max cushion shoe. It can go faster a little bit, but again, it's a little bit on the big side and a little bit on the heavy side. The Aeroburst is even heavier than the Neo Vista 2, but with the Aeroburst, you are getting a bit of a discount because it carries that Skechers logo on the side. That shoe retails at a price of $150. Now, the other shoe that I think we need to talk about when we're talking about the Neo Vista 2 is the shoe that I think that they're targeting, the shoe that they're trying to make over at Mizuno, and the competitor shoe is from ASICS, and this is the Superblast version 2. And so with this shoe, you've got two different layers of foam. You've got a high caliber foam, you've got FF Turbo Plus, which is a race caliber foam, and then you've got a regular daily training foam on the bottom. Kind of analogous to what they're doing with the two different types of foam in the Neo Vista 2. Now, because they're using a race caliber foam in the Superblast 2, this shoe ends up being a lot lighter, plus the compression and decompression is a bit peppier. And so while I can use this shoe as a max cushion shoe, I really like to reach for it on those long runs that have some speedier miles built in them, whether it's a progression run, up tempo, or just straight marathon effort miles in the middle of a much bigger long run. I prefer having the Superblast version 2. Now, this shoe I do think is a little bit touch overpriced, but that comes in at that $200 price point where the Neo Vista 2 sits. So depending on what you're looking for, if you're looking for a long run shoe, which is a very kind of specialized sub niche of a sub niche of shoe, I feel like that $200 price point is a bit high, but makes sense. But if you're looking at just a max cushion shoe like in the Neo Vista 2, $200 kind of feels like a lot. So those are my thoughts on the Neo Vista 2. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this shoe or any of the shoes that I talked about today, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Mondays and Thursdays over on the Kofuzi Run to Club channel. I'd love to answer any questions that you have over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?